The text message from Jake's mom glowed on my phone screen. "He's not breathing right. I've called 911. Please come." My heart stopped. I just left their house 3 hours ago after spending the night. What I didn't know then was that this emergency would lead to a confession that would change everything I thought I knew about my best friend's family, and my own past. Hey everyone, before I continue this absolutely wild story, take a second to hit that like button and subscribe if you want more real-life stories that will leave you questioning everything. Trust me, what Jake's mom told me that night in the hospital waiting room is something I'm still processing weeks later. Jake and I had been friends since middle school, inseparable through the awkward teen years and now into our early 20s. His mom, Diana, had always been like a second mother to me. She was the cool mom who let us stay up late playing video games and always had the pantry stocked with our favorite snacks. My own mom had passed away when I was young, so Diana's maternal presence in my life meant more than she probably realized. That Friday night sleepover was supposed to be like any other. Jake's dad was away on a business trip, so Diana ordered us pizza and then retreated to her home office to finish some work. Jake and I stayed up until 3 a.m. playing the new Elden Ring DLC, trash-talking and laughing until our sides hurt. Everything was normal. Completely normal. I left around noon the next day, giving Diana a casual wave goodbye as she watered plants on the front porch. She smiled and reminded me about the dinner she was hosting next weekend for Jake's birthday. I promised I'd be there and headed home to catch up on homework. Then at 3:17 p.m., the text came. I broke every speed limit getting back to their house, arriving just as the ambulance was pulling away. Diana was climbing into her car, her face ashen and eyes wild with fear. She spotted me and waved frantically. "Follow me to the hospital," she called out, her voice cracking. The next few hours were a blur of sterile hallways, uncomfortable waiting room chairs, and the persistent beeping of hospital equipment. Jake had suffered a severe allergic reaction to something he ate after I left. The doctors were working to stabilize him, but we weren't allowed to see him yet. Diana sat beside me, her hands trembling as she clutched a paper cup of untouched coffee. The waiting room was nearly empty except for an elderly couple in the far corner and a nurse occasionally typing at the reception desk. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across Diana's face, highlighting the worry lines I'd never noticed before. "This is my fault," she whispered suddenly, breaking the heavy silence between us. "How could this be your fault?" I asked, confused. Jake's had allergies his whole life. He knows what to avoid. Diana shook her head slowly, tears welling in her eyes. "No, not just the allergic reaction. Everything. All of it." She turned to face me fully, her expression a mixture of guilt and resolution. "There's something I need to tell you, something I should have told both of you years ago." The intensity in her eyes made my stomach knot. Whatever was coming, I knew it was serious. "Jake isn't my biological son," she said, her voice barely audible. I blinked, trying to process her words. "You mean he's adopted?" "That's not a big deal, Diana. Lots of people." "No," she interrupted, "not adopted. Not officially." She took a deep breath. 22 years ago, I was working as a nurse at Mercy General. There was a terrible car accident on Highway 16. A young couple, they didn't make it. My mind raced to connect the dots, but I couldn't see where this was going. "The woman was 8 months pregnant," Diana continued, her voice steadying as she finally shared a secret she'd carried for decades. "The doctors performed an emergency C-section. The baby survived, a miracle, they called it. But there was no family to claim him. No grandparents, no aunts or uncles. No one." I felt a chill run down my spine. "Jake was that baby?" Diana nodded, wiping away a tear. "I was assigned to care for him in the NICU. Day after day, I watched this tiny fighter grow stronger while social services searched for any relatives. After 3 weeks, they were preparing to place him in the foster system. She paused, twisting her wedding ring nervously. My husband and I had been trying for years to have a child. We'd just been rejected for adoption because of Mark's previous bankruptcy. When I told him about this perfect baby boy with no one to love him, we made a decision that would haunt and bless us every day since. You took him, I whispered, the realization dawning on me. Mark had a friend who worked in hospital administration. Records were altered. A birth certificate was created. In the chaos following the accident and with an overloaded system, no one looked too closely. We moved to this town a month later, and Jake became our son. My mind was reeling. Jake, my best friend, had no idea he was living a life built on falsified documents and well-intentioned deception. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. Diana's eyes met mine, filled with a new kind of fear. Because the doctors need his complete medical history, and I don't have it. I've always been terrified this day would come, when my lie would put him in danger. She reached into her purse and pulled out a worn newspaper clipping, carefully preserved in a plastic sleeve. This is the only thing I have about his biological parents. I took the clipping with trembling hands. The headline read, "Tragic Accident Claims Lives of Newlyweds." Below was a photo of a young couple standing in front of a Christmas tree, smiling broadly at the camera. The woman's hand rested protectively over her pregnant belly. I stared at the photo, and the world seemed to tilt beneath me. The man in the picture had the same distinctive jawline as Jake, the same slightly crooked smile. But it was the woman who made my blood run cold. She looked exactly like the photos I had of my mother. My voice came out as a strangled whisper. What were their names? Diana pointed to the caption beneath the photo. Robert and Elizabeth Mitchell. Elizabeth Mitchell. My mother's maiden name before she married my father. That's impossible, I said, my voice hollow. My mother died when I was 4. Her name was Elizabeth. She had a sister named Sarah who died in a car crash before I was born. Diana's face drained of color. Your mother's maiden name was Mitchell? I nodded, unable to form words as the pieces started falling into place. The article mentioned she had a sister who was raising a young son, Diana said quietly. The police tried to contact her, but apparently she had moved abroad with her husband. My dad took a job in Germany after my mom died, I said mechanically. We lived there until I was 12. We sat in stunned silence, the implications too enormous to process. If this was true, if the woman in the photo was my Aunt Sarah, then Jake wasn't just my friend. Jake was my cousin. For 22 years, we had grown up as best friends, never knowing we shared the same blood. The coincidence of us meeting in middle school, of all the schools in all the towns, seemed too incredible to be random. Does Jake look like her? Diana asked softly. Your mother? I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and found the photo album I'd digitized years ago. I scrolled to a picture of my mother holding me as a baby, her smile radiant and familiar. Diana gasped when I showed her. They could be sisters, she whispered, then caught herself. I mean, they were sisters. A doctor appeared in the waiting room doorway, clipboard in hand. Mrs. Reynolds? Your son is stabilized. You can see him now. Diana stood, then hesitated, looking at me with uncertainty. What do we do? Do we tell him? I stood beside her, my mind still struggling to process everything. I don't know. But whatever we decide, we do it together. As we walked toward Jake's room, I felt like I was moving through a dream. My best friend was my cousin. His mother had essentially kidnapped him as a baby. My father had never told me about my aunt's pregnancy. How many other secrets were buried in our family's pasts? Jake was pale against the white hospital sheets, and 4 in his arm and monitors beeping steadily beside him. He managed a weak smile when he saw us. Hey, he croaked. Apparently I'm allergic to that new hot sauce we tried. Who knew? Diana rushed to his side, smoothing his hair back from his forehead with maternal tenderness. The love in her eyes was undeniable, regardless of biology or legality. I hung back, seeing him with new eyes. The family resemblance I'd never noticed before now seemed obvious, the shape of his eyes, the way one corner of his mouth lifted higher than the other when he smiled. How had I never seen it? "Why are you looking at me like that?" Jake asked, his voice stronger. "I'm not dying, dude. Just had my throat close up a little." Diana shot me a warning glance over her shoulder. "Not now," her eyes said. "Not like this." I forced a smile. "Just glad you're okay, man. You scared the hell out of us." As I watched Diana fuss over Jake, checking his fore and adjusting his pillows, I realized that regardless of how she became his mother, she was his mother in every way that mattered. She had raised him, loved him, and protected him his entire life. But the truth had a weight of its own. Jake deserved to know where he came from. I deserved to know more about the aunt I never knew I had. And somewhere in the tangle of secrets and coincidences was a story that connected us all. That night, as Jake slept and Diana stepped out to call her husband, I sat alone in the hospital room contemplating the strange turns life can take. How thin is the line between stranger and family? How many connections do we miss as we move through the world, passing people on the street who might share our blood, our history, our DNA? When Diana returned, her eyes were red from crying. She'd told her husband everything, including the impossible coincidence of my relation to Jake. "Mark's flying home tomorrow," she said quietly, taking the seat beside me. "We need to decide what to do." "We tell him the truth," I said with more certainty than I felt. "All of it." Diana nodded slowly. "I've lived with this secret for so long, I don't know who I am without it." "But you're right." She reached over and squeezed my hand. "Will you help me? He trusts you." "Of course," I promised. "We're family, after all." The word hung in the air between us, new and yet somehow ancient. The next day, when Jake was stronger and Mark had arrived, we gathered in the hospital room. Diana began the story, her voice trembling at first but growing stronger as she continued. Mark held her hand, adding details when she faltered. I watched Jake's face as he learned the truth about his origins: shock, disbelief, anger, confusion, and finally, a quiet acceptance. When it was my turn, I showed him the photos of my mother and told him what little I knew about her sister Sarah, his biological mother. We discovered that we had the same eyes, the same allergies, even the same inexplicable hatred of cilantro. "So we're actually cousins," Jake said finally, testing the word. "That's why we've always gotten along so well. It's in our DNA." "I'm so sorry we never told you," Diana said, tears streaming down her face. "We were going to, when you were older, but then it never seemed like the right time, and the longer we waited." "Mom," Jake interrupted, reaching for her hand. "You are my mom. Nothing changes that." The relief on Diana's face was palpable. Mark wiped away tears of his own. "But," Jake continued, looking at me, "this does mean we have some family history to uncover. Together." In the weeks that followed, Jake and I dove into research, piecing together the story of our shared family. We discovered that my father had known about Sarah's pregnancy but had lost touch with her after a falling out. He was shocked to learn that her son had survived the accident and had been living just miles away all these years. Legal questions remained about Jake's adoption, but with the help of a compassionate attorney, the Reynolds began the process of legally adopting Jake as an adult, making official what had been true in their hearts for 22 years. As for me, I gained not just a cousin but a deeper understanding of my own history. The hole left by my mother's early death had always shaped me, but now I had a new connection to her through Jake and the aunt I never knew. Life is strange that way. The most important connections can be hidden in plain sight, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. Jake and I had always felt like brothers, and now we understood why. Blood is powerful, but so is the family we choose and the love we build day by day. So if you're watching this and wondering about your own story, the parts you know and the parts still hidden, remember that truth has a way of surfacing when it's ready. And when it does, it might just leave you speechless, but it will never leave you alone. If this story touched you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories that remind us how connected we all truly are. Until next time, cherish the family you have, both the one you were born into and the one you've created along the way.